What is y equals mx plus b? What does that represent? The equation of a line. If you were to graph a line, you write it in the form y equals mx plus b. This is called slope-intercept form. If it's written in this form, so if the equation says y equals and then it has everything after that, if it's written in this form, what information can you gather from the equation? And some of you are saying it, but you're not putting it into words. Whatever number is in front of x, whatever number is in front of x represents your slope. You can be given the equation. If I give you the equation y equals 2x plus 7, the number in front of x will always represent the slope, and the plus b, the number that's by itself, so in this case it's 7, represents the y-intercept. Okay, do you guys remember this from grade 9? The y-intercept, if you remember this from grade 9, is the point where the line hits the y-axis. So this is your y-axis and this is your x-axis on a graph, right? The point where your line, so here's my line. Sorry? Yeah, the point where it hits the line, right here, it hits the line. That is always referred to as the y-intercept. The y-intercept is 3. But how do I write this point as a coordinate? I want you to write the coordinate on your paper. This is on page 10. How would you write it as a coordinate? 0, 3. So what they're saying here is that for a y-intercept, look here, look, for a y-intercept, x is always 0. It has to be located at 0 something. For example, what is this point here that I just indicated? Right here, 0, -4. It hits the y-axis. Anything that touches the y-axis is called a y-intercept if it touches the y-axis. So if it starts with 0, then you know it's going to hit the y-axis, okay? Do you guys remember that? So we just talked about an equation in the form y equals mx plus b. That's called slope-intercept form. What does m represent? The number in front of x, I just talked about it. M is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So let's go through some examples. Okay, so you can only identify the m, and I'll use red, m and b, if it's written in this form, if it's written in slope-intercept form. Does it look like all of these are written in slope-intercept form? Y equals 4x minus 5, yes. It's written in the form. If it says y equals, then it's written in slope-intercept form, okay? So if it's in that form, we can identify, okay, what is the slope and what is the y-intercept? We're going to do it for each one. So for question A, the equation is y equals 4x minus 5. Raise your hand if you can tell me what is the slope of that line. Yes?
4x.
4. Just the number. It's just the number, okay? So if you were to graph it, well, slope is equal to rise over run. So the slope is 4 over what? There's no number there. What can I divide anything by that doesn't change the number? 1. You can write it as a fraction. You can just write 4. Okay, so then what would be the y-intercept, the Jenny? We know the slope is 4. What's the y-intercept for this one? Positive or negative? Good, -5. Okay, that's it. Let's do the next one. Now, be careful because slope is the number that is in front of x. The slope is attached to the variable x. If it doesn't have an x beside it, it's not the slope, okay? All we're trying to do right now is identify the slope. The slope is everything in front of x. So where's x? Right here. So what is the slope? What is m? What's in front of x? Everything in front. You have to include the negative. The slope of this line would be negative 2 over 3. What would the y-intercept be? Yes, Shakila? Positive 1 over 3. That's all you have to write. We're just identifying the slope and we're identifying the y-intercept because I'm going to show you how you can graph this after. So for question C, raise your hand if you said the slope was 7. The slope is not 7 because there's no x next to it. Remember, the slope is the coefficient. That means the number in front of x. So what's the slope for C? And what's the y-intercept? 7. That's the number by itself. There's two parts to the equation. There's the slope and there's the intercept. Okay, here's a tricky one. If there's no number in front of x, what can you always put in front of a variable that doesn't change it? Look. So I'm going to put a 1 here. So what's the slope? Negative 1. Excellent. What's the y-intercept? Positive 4. That's it. That's all you have to do. Okay, but now the opposite. What if I give you the slope and I give you the y-intercept? Can you write it in the form y equals mx plus b? You're going to put the slope in front of x and you're going to put the intercept by itself. That's it. Perfect. Y equals 2 is the slope, so I put 2x, and then positive 9 is the y-intercept, so I put plus 9. That's it. Y equals 2x plus 9. Very simple. Okay, next one. Who can tell me the next one? So y equals 1x. Now you could say plus negative 5, or we can simplify it. We can say y equals, we could just say x, right? We don't have to put a 1 there. And then we could say take away 5. So this is the answer simplified. Okay, does that make sense? Raise your hand if you got that one right. Y equals x minus 5. I can put the 1 here, but you don't have to. It's not right or wrong. I'll accept either. Okay? It would technically be y equals what? 0 what?
0x.
Uh-huh.
Plus 4.
Okay. If you take 0 and you multiply it by anything, what's the answer? 0. So this is actually not needed. So it's, no, it's not, there's no x. 0 times x is 0. You can't, when you multiply something by 0, the answer is 0. So this is the equation. Y equals 4. That's it. Y equals 4. Net y equals negative 3 over 4x. Yep. Do I have to write plus nothing? Nope. You can just leave it as this. Y equals negative 3 over 4x. If you don't put the x, it's wrong. Okay? And E is easy. Y equals 1 over 2x minus 5 over 4. And that's it. If you are given the graph, so this is line 1. Okay, they called this line 1, and this is line 2. Let's do line 1 first. So for line 1, we are going to find the slope. Shh. You pick any points on the graph, remember, that are touching the line. So I'm going to pick this point, and I'm going to pick this point. And you're going to count. Rise over run. Remember we did this on Friday? So the rise is what? I'm going down 1, down 2, right? Negative 2 over, across how many? What's the run? 8. Can you put that in lowest terms? What number are 2 and 8 divisible by? Divide by 2. Divide by 2. What's 2 divided by 2? 1 over 4. Okay, so does everyone see how we got the slope? We did this on Friday. So it's negative, and remember back to what we talked about, any line that goes down to the right, it will always be negative, and any line that goes up to the right will always have a positive slope. This line is going down to the right. I'm going down, which is negative, and I'm going across to the right, which is positive. A negative and a positive will always give me a negative. So the slope is negative. Does that make sense? Where does the line intercept the y-axis? Elijah already told us. What's the y-intercept? John? So the y-intercept, we can just write 3. It hits the y-axis at 0, 3. So the y-intercept is 3. Well, now that I know the slope and I know the y-intercept, what is the equation of this line? Y equals what equation of the line? I know my m and I know my b. Put it into slope-intercept form. Yes, y equals negative 1 over 4 x plus 3. That is the final answer. That is the equation of the red line. Does everyone... So the blue line, you picked 2 points, and I saw that you were picking this point. Look here in this one. What's the rise and run?
When you go to the lowest turn.
Yep. What does it rise by? 1, 2, 3. What's the run? 3 over 1. Any 2 points. It goes 1, 2, 3. It goes up 3 and over 1. It goes up 3 and over 1. It doesn't matter which points you pick. So 3 over 1 equals 3.